Welcome back to Underrated Movies. I'm your guy, I'm your man, Mr. Alton Henry. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very underrated film I just finished watching on HBO Max. And this is Gus Van Sant's The Sea of Trees, starring Ken Watanabe, Naomi Watts, and Matthew McConaughey. It's a story about an American man who is suicidal, travels to Japan to the suicide forest where he plans to end his life until he meets another fellow man, Japan. Plan on doing the same thing. The two kind of spark a conversation about why they're there and trying to find more meaning in their lives. And first of all, I can't understand the negative reception from this film. This film has actually been on my radar for quite a while, and the reviews actually did keep me away from it. It did, and I just like for me, I can't, I don't understand. Now I do kind of read into some of the comics regarding to what the when the what the film what people thought about the film at Cannes. They thought it was, and it is somewhat of a genre bending, but I thought the director was able to balance those themes well by keeping the same tone and mishmashing it together. It doesn't feel inconsistent. Uh, to its core, the way the story was projected, it felt I wouldn't say needed, but it felt right what the director was trying to do with this film. Matthew McConaughey plays I believe he's like a writer and teacher who is in a somewhat declining marriage with his wife, played by Naomi Watts, who basically does not respect his profession, and also she in return has treated him very poorly and aggressively, and which leads to a decline in their marriage, which Beth McConaughey's character mentions they almost divorced twice, or basically what those scenes factor with the two of them. They're shown in flashbacks. They basically aren't meeting each other's needs, and they've done this to each other, they've done that, and it just you see how their relationship has been declining until a certain moment in the film where it changes all that. And then with this tragedy and then that Matthew McConaughey experiences, spoiler, sorry, he goes to Japan to tries to end his life and tries to seek the value in life when he meets this guy. Where when it comes to that point where he meets Kim Watanabe, it does turn a little bit into a survival film where the two of them try to get out. And I think maybe that's where the mystery aspect of the film kind of plays out, where in that section of the plot you have these two guys trying to make it out alive. And it's like when they go try to find the right path, it's like they're in a maze and they can't really get out. And maybe that's the mystery level behind it, and maybe some of the storytelling element behind it. Kind of similar to The Vanishing of Sydney Hall, where that's kind of built as a mystery drama. It reveals itself more of what's happening, why the characters are there, and it established it, I thought, very well. And what's interesting about it, and I don't know if I ever agree this is kind of a mystery film. It's a drama to its core. Uh, there's no thriller element to it at all. It's really understanding why these characters are there in the first place, and it flashes back why and the reason it drove them to it. I actually really like some of the conversations that they had in this film where the reason why they're there is guilt for not, and the theme and the film touches on this theme, the guilt of not really taking the time of appreciating the relationships you have with people and how much that they've impact. Despite the flaws that they have each other, you don't fully take the moment to truly understand a person. You might like certain qualities, but truly understanding and really appreciating. It deals with just appreciating one's presence. I thought this film touches very, very heavily, especially on the dynamic with Matthew McConaughey and Naomi Watts' character and their story, where they even mention it to each other, where they don't feel appreciative of each other's presence and their time, and then it gets to the point where they start to resent one another. And I think this is also a very relatable film when it comes to that, where we don't take the time to really appreciate the moments you have with somebody, because you never know, something like that could happen, and it changes your whole perspective. It's like, oh shoot, now you know you don't know until something actually happens. And I think that's why taking the moment to really, really take the time to enjoy it and learning about somebody really comes in. Um, there are some scenes in there which was actually pretty surprising, and it does fall into a adventure thriller kind of like thing where Ken Watanabe and Matthew McConaughey are in the forest trying to survive, and it does lean into that to a degree. Like, it reminds me a little bit of 127 Hours and The Lost City of Z, especially one particular moment when there's water coming in and washing both of the characters down, and it gets interesting. But there's never a moment where the film feels dull, at least for me. There's never a moment where the film I thought dragged. I thought the pacing of this film was great, and I thought the way they handled the flashback sequences between Naomi Watts back to the present time of the stories taking place was well handled. And I really can't fathom the negative reception to this film, as I think, and I guess because of that they tried to bury this film on the A24 brand. I can't fathom the reason why they would go to that lengths to do that. Because it deals with really taking the time to really learning and appreciating the person that you're with. Because if we don't, we tend to regret it and we blame ourselves for it. And I think that, I mean, I ain't gonna go. I mean, I'm not gonna harp on it too much. I mean, there's a lot to take in from this film that I think it's heavily misunderstood. And it feels very philosophical at times too. And I think this is why I kind of resonated with the movie more. Um, and I don't watch a lot of Gus Van Sant's movies, but I can tell you I really, really enjoyed this one out of his work. And like I'm baffled for the reception of this film and why the rating got for what it got. It has a 17%. And similar to The Vanishing of Sydney Hall, that main character, and a little of a spoiler in case you haven't seen the movie, and I highly recommend it. I reviewed it on my channel. The main character is in the position that he's in because one person that he tried to establish a relationship in his life, he chooses to neglect it for whatever the reason is. And something happens where tragedy strikes, and now he realizes, one of the most important thing in his life is going to disappear forever. And that's something I think, as people, need to really, really consider that we really need to pay attention on the people that we have in our lives and really, 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 especially if their intentions are pure and good, to really take the time to appreciate the presence and what we have with them because we will never know when that is gone. Never know. I highly recommend this film. It's currently available on HBO Max. The Sea of Trees. Have you seen it? Comment below. Let me know if you have, and let me know what is your favorite underrated film.